Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. It's Russell with Ink and Paper Blog. Hope you are all having a great weekend. It is the last weekend in May here in California. It's Memorial Day weekend across the United States, so I know a lot of us have a 3-day weekend. I hope you are all enjoying it. The weather is beautiful here, and we are doing a bunch of family stuff and enjoying the outdoors, so I hope you guys are all enjoying it as well. I thought today that I would spend some time on some books that may not have made it on your radar, or maybe you guys have heard of in the past but haven't picked up, and I'm here to sell them for you. Some of them I think will be a surprise. So, as I said last time, I think they're all really exciting. So I hope you get out a piece of paper and write them down, or however you keep track of books that you're going to read in the future. I just have 5 recommendations. I'll go through them pretty quickly for you. I do have Dorothy again in my lap. Turns out she has turned into quite the feisty little girl, so if she decides to get up and make herself known, I will apologize in advance. So, the first book is actually the first in a series I'm going to tell you about, and it's called ExHeros by, let me get my fingers there, Peter Cline. ExHeros is actually a series I heard through Books on the Nightstand and Booktopia. Peter came to a Booktopia that I actually didn't go to, but I heard about his books and I was really interested, and I try to go outside my comfort zone every once in a while, and ExHeros in this series are definitely outside my normal comfort zone. This is actually kind of an exciting series about a group of superheroes that have come together to protect the city of LA after a zombie outbreak. So LA is circled by this wall, and these superheroes are actually the protectors of everybody that lives there, to defend them against the zombies. And there are actually other factions and groups, supervillains, the zombies themselves, people who are trying to get into the city and steal their resources. It's really the story of how these superheroes got to there, so you get to hear the history of how we get to the zombie apocalypse. And you also get to hear about the sort of intrigue and power struggle within the community between the humans and the superheroes as they all fight to survive the zombie apocalypse that's going around them. It is a super fun, super interesting, super creative story arc. I have read the first 4, and I think there are 5. I haven't read the last one yet, but I've enjoyed them all. I've given them to a number of people as a book that's outside your normal comfort zone, and they've all really liked them. So that is ExHeros, which is the first in a series by Peter Cline. And I hope you picked them up. I really enjoyed them. They were really fun. So to go from fun zombie apocalyptic superheroes to my next book is quite a transition. But this is The Shawl, and it's actually The Shawl in Another Story, Rosa, by Cynthia Ozick. Now, I don't know if you guys know who Cynthia Ozick is. She's probably one of the preeminent Jewish American writers that we have. And these are 2 very short novellas. And I'm going to mainly tell you about The Shawl because it's the one that really sticks out in my head. It is the story of a woman in a concentration camp who has to watch her daughter and her daughter die at the hands of a guard. And I remember reading it and just being knocked off my seat by the power, by the humanity, by the heartbreak. Cynthia Ozick is a writer that I've always meant to read more of, but I think The Shawl is so perfect that I'm scared to read anything else by her because I think it's just so amazing. If you haven't read it, I really highly recommend picking up this edition with these 2 short novellas in it. It will take you maybe a couple hours to read them both. I read them in college. I then read them again for a book club I was in, and I just picked them up not that long ago and flipped through it. And she will tear your heart out, but she will also show you the immense power of short fiction. So that is The Shawl by Cynthia Ozick. If you haven't heard of it, please put it on your list and pick it up. I'm sure it's at your library, or I'm sure you can get it at any used bookstore, or just get it. So there you go. This third book I'm going to tell you about is actually nonfiction. and I don't talk about a lot of nonfiction. I don't talk a lot about YA, and I really should talk about them more because I do read them and I do enjoy them. But that's The Warmth of Other Suns: The Epic Story of America's Great Migration by Isabel Wilkerson. This actually was the winner of the Pulitzer a few years ago, and this is nonfiction, and this is the story of the migration of the Black community from the South north through, I want to say, the 1920s through the 1970s. I can't remember the time frame exactly. 1915 to 1970s, and there was an exodus of, I think, 6 million African Americans from the South moved north to Chicago, Detroit, all of that area to change their lives. And the brilliance of this book is that it really does tell you about that migration, the reasons for that migration, and everything you need to know about the history. But it also focuses on 3 separate individuals and the reason for their migration. One of the people actually, I think, winds up in California as a doctor, and it is fascinating how their family life changes or doesn't change as much as they hoped. Also, sort of the racism that they have to deal with in the parts of the country they think they are fleeing racism from, only to find racism exactly where they wind up. It is nonfiction, but it reads like fiction. You will never be bored. You will learn a lot about American history that you probably didn't know. And that's The Warmth of Other Suns by Isabel Wilkerson, and it is phenomenal. So I highly recommend it. I think it's probably out in paperback now, so you don't have to carry around this tome of a hardback. But I remember reading it and being floored by her and her writing and her stories. So that's really, really a good one. The next 2 are actually 2 writers that I wish more people read. And I know, like Thomas over at hogglestock.com and of the readers, we'll talk about the next author a lot. Him and I go back and forth on how great he is. And that is Paul Auster, who wrote this. The one I'm going to talk about is the New York Trilogy, which is a set of 3 novellas that kind of interconnect. All of his books that I've read, and I've probably read 5 or 6, have been excellent. He's very avant-garde. He's very, I don't want to use the word postmodern because I'm not sure that it's exactly right, but he writes in such a way that you're always having to think and always having to challenge yourself. And the New York Trilogy is actually 3, and this is a really great version because it breaks it down. It's 3 different stories. It's City of Glass, Ghosts, and The Locked Room. Now, City of Glass is the story of I'm just going to read you the blurbs because they're so weird. I don't want to missell them, but I want you to kind of understand them. City of Glass is, as the result of a strange phone call in the middle of the night, Quinn, a writer of detective stories, becomes enmeshed in a case more puzzling than he might have written. And he, as a writer, is trying to approach the mystery as someone who writes mysteries, but also being involved in the mystery, sort of that conundrum. Ghost is the story. It says, Blue, a student of Brown, has been hired by White to spy on Black. From a window of a rented room on Orange Street, Blue stalks his subject, who is staring out of his window. So it is, that one was probably my favorite in these 3 because it's so convoluted how everybody is connected throughout the stories, and ironically maybe connected to your first novella. It's very clever. You will be on the edge of your seat. You think you'll figure it out, and Paul Auster will take you on a turn you didn't see coming, and it's really good. And then the last novella is called The Locked Room, and it says, Fanshawe has disappeared, leaving behind his wife and baby and a cachet of extraordinary novels, plays, and poems. What happened? All 3 of them are connected. All of it comes together. It is the weirdest sense of mysteries. It's also an homage to New York, homage to what makes New York special. Paul Auster is just such an interesting writer. And if you haven't read him, please do. And pick up the New York Trilogy, because I think it's a great introduction to what he is. But the Brooklyn Follies by him, excellent. I can't remember all the names of his books, but I've read a bunch of them. And I've loved them all, and I really, really highly recommend him. I know he has a new book out. that I think is autobiographical in nature, but it is ginormous. So it's kind of scared me away in hardback form. I'm waiting for the paperback to come out. But if you haven't read up Paul Auster, New York Trilogy, highly recommend it. And last but not least is a collection of short stories that I may say is my favorite collection of short stories ever. That's a big statement, but it may be true. I'm not sure. And that is Tim O'Brien's The Things They Carry. I know a lot of people have probably read this, but I think a lot of people haven't, and that kind of makes me sad because they're brilliant. The first story is called The Things They Carried, and this is really a short story collection that centers around the Vietnam War. And the first paragraph of it is really just a list of the things people carry as they enter war on the backs of these men going into battle in Vietnam. And it is really powerful. But it is not the story that sticks out in my head. I can't remember the name of the story because I'm not great on names like that. But there is a short story in here that is about the main character. They're all semi-autobiographical. So Tim O'Brien stars in a lot of his own stories. And it is a short story about the fact that he has been drafted to go to Vietnam, and he wants to run away. He doesn't want to go to war. So he gets in his car and he drives north, and he winds up just south of the Canadian border at a closed resort community, helping a man who runs this sort of resort while it's closed for the season. And it's the story of him coming to terms with the decisions that he's going to have to make about his life as an adult. It's learning about this man and the choices we make. And he has to make the decision on whether or not he goes to war, or if he stays home, or if he flees to Canada and never sees his family again. And it was one of those things where I read the short story, and once it was done, I couldn't stop thinking about it. I took a break. I didn't read. It just moved me, and it was just really powerful. And this is Memorial Day weekend, where we honor those people who have fought for our country and lost their lives, and we remember them in all the different wars that we've had to do. We were talking about this at lunch. I didn't know the history of Memorial Day weekend, when it really came into being. And my father was in the military for a long time, for 37 years. My brother was in the army. He went to Afghanistan and Iraq. So the military and the sacrifices that people make in the military have always been really close to home. And this book just encompasses that and really powerfully brings it home. Tim O'Brien may be one of those underrated writers that not enough people have read, but he's also one of those people that when you talk about the short story form, everyone will probably lead you to this book. So that's The Things We Carried by Tim O'Brien, and it is fantastic. If you haven't read it, pick it up. If you have read it, tell people to pick it up, right? It's amazing. So those are 5 books that have been out for quite a while, but I think everyone should know about, and I hope you've read them, or you will read them. So if you have read them, let's talk about them below. If you haven't read them, please buy them. Let's talk about that below. I'd love to hear what you think about them. I thank you all for watching. If you're new, I really appreciate it. Please subscribe if you're coming back. I appreciate every comment and every view, and I hope you all have a great 3-day weekend. If you've got one, if you have 2 days, have a great 2-day weekend, and I will talk to you guys soon. I'll be back on Wednesday with another book haul from the East Coast. So hope everyone's doing well. Talk to you later.